everyone, this is Lilia and today I've got a delicious apple pie recipe for you. So we're starting off with a flaky crust followed by some apples and a gooey brown sugar and cinnamon sauce that goes along with it. And then to top it off, we've got a lattice pattern dough. So if you're ready, let's get started. So now we're going to sift our flour, and I've got all-purpose flour, both the flour and the salt. This is just to take out any little clumps that there might be in the flour. Sometimes you can see them there. You don't want that in your crust. So I'm going to give that a good mix to mix the salt well. Alright, now we're going to add our unsalted butter. I recommend that you use that instead of regular salt because this will turn out super salty and you don't want that. I'm going to cube my butter in and make sure it's really cold. I actually stuck it in the freezer for just a bit. You want that, you don't want it to get soft. And now that my butter is in, I'm going to start mixing it with my hands. And the heat from your hands will kind of melt it through. The flour, you want every piece to be covered in that butter. So the goal here is to achieve a really flaky crust, and in order for you to do that, your butter or coconut oil that you use has to be really cold. I like to put mine in the freezer for a tiny bit. It makes it easier for you when it's frozen to cover every single flour particle with that oil. And that's what creates, when it's baking, that's what it creates, those air pockets, and it makes sure that your crust is really flaky. So to my dough, I'm adding 1 tablespoon of cold water. I mixed it with a little vinegar. We're gonna start mixing all of our dough. Okay, you want to do that slowly because you don't want a sticky dough. Your dough should still be kind of, it should look a little crumbly. It should stick together but not be sticky, if that makes any sense. So you could start seeing it here, how it doesn't stick to the bowl. It's starting to stick together. Yeah. Now we're going to take all our dough and form it into a ball. And we're going to refrigerate this for 30 minutes. And I'm actually going to stick it in a Ziploc baggie, a large one. If you don't have a Ziploc baggie, you can use plastic wrap. Wrap all of it, and it works just fine. So for now, I'm just going to continue rolling this. Get all the air out. My apples, what I do, you can cut them anyway. What I do is cut them in half. And then again, and to make it just a little easier, just cut it, let it sit here on the side. Just do this, cut it kind of at an angle, and then it removes the core. Really simple. You could, some people cut them in thin slices like this, you can do that, but I like to cut mine in small pieces, so you can cut them any size really. And you can use a variety of apples, so it creates a nice flavor, a mix between the two. The green one tends to be a little bit more tart, and I've got a honey apple crisp on this side. If you get a pink lady, it's even sweeter, so it kind of just depends on what you like. To our apple mixture, I'm going to add my brown sugar. Got a little salt there, and then my spices. So I've got ground ginger, some ground nutmeg, and ground cinnamon. I mix these all up together. Now we're going to add white sugar. And I like to use a combination of brown sugar and white sugar because it has more depth to it. Now we're going to give this a good mix. And to this, I still like to sprinkle a little bit of lime or lemon juice, whichever one you have on hand. Just a little sprinkle. And then once the apples are baking in the oven, apples are mostly water, so I like to add a little cornstarch so it creates a really nice apple gravy almost. And now we add that cornstarch. I like to add cornstarch instead of flour, just because flour has that raw taste sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't cook out properly, and cornstarch doesn't, so I personally like to use that. Make sure all the apples are coated with a cornstarch. I'm actually gonna add just a tiny bit more to that. So now I'm gonna cover my surface with a little flour, and I'm going to roll out my dough. You want to work kind of quick so the butter doesn't start melting. And with my dough, what I do is cut this in half. Half of it is going to be used to make the lattice pattern on top, and then the other half is going to be used for the crust underneath. Now we roll it out. And you can make your crust as thick or as thin as you want. It's just up to you. Now I'm going to transfer this crust on over. And if it tears a little bit, it's okay. You can always fix it in the pan. Just kind of glue it back together. And if you don't like these edges, you could cut them off. I like to save them for the end. And then I just roll them over. And I'll show you how to make that. And while I'm working on the second piece, I'll refrigerate this with the same bag. Now on to the top piece. I'm going to roll it out again. We want this to be a flat sheet as we are going to cut strips out of it. So this doesn't have to be perfectly round. Alrighty. So now we're going to cut really long ribbons, really long strips, not pressing too hard. You can make them any length or width. Alright, so now we're going to top the pie with our apple mixture. And I hope you can see that juice, all that what I call apple gravy, because that's what's going to turn out towards the end. It smells amazing. It smells like those Yankee candles. You guys have seen that. So good. Continue to layer it out. And it looks like a lot of apples, but again, apples have a lot of water, so they'll end up shrinking. So I like to put a lot. So now I'm gonna start arranging these from end to end. I do like to have a gap so you can see the apples in between. You could do just one big blanket if that's what you prefer. It is quicker, but I think for presentation, this is a lot nicer. So now for this piece, what I do is every other ribbon, I push it back. So if you can see here, it'd be this one and then this last one. And I do one ribbon here, like this. And then this over. And you do the same for this. So you'll do that with all the ribbons on this side. So now when you bring these ribbons back, it looks like it's over and under. I save whatever I have saved from the dough. I don't always trash it. I like to keep these scraps because now you can either do a braid, it's kind of up to you, but what I'm gonna do is start curling these in, and then wherever there's not enough dough, that's where I use my scraps to do that. So I'll start rolling it out. This is what your pie should look like. Now I'm going to beat an egg and brush the top so it gets a nice, beautiful golden crust. And getting all those bits of brown sugar, a little bit that was left, we're going to brush the tops. Alrighty. So now we're going to cover our pie because we don't want our pie to burn. What the foil does is keep everything nice and moist, and then the last about 20 minutes we'll remove it so it can get a nice crust. So now you want to bake this at 325 degrees for 30 minutes with the aluminum foil, and then the last 20 minutes remove it just so it gets that nice golden crust. So if you want to see some more tasty recipes, make sure to support me by liking, subscribing, and sharing this with your friends, and I'll see you all in the next video.